Hello and welcome to T-Pac's Poker Channel. This series of videos will concentrate on progressive knockout tournaments on America's card room. If you've never played a progressive knockout or bounty tournament, give it a try. They are a lot of fun but require a few adjustments in your strategy. Here are a few of my tips. First, you want to register on time. In bounty tournaments, money starts flowing as soon as the tournament starts, so don't wait. Get in there and start collecting those scalps. It's important to get off to a good start. You want to build a stack early so when the opportunity comes, you can go for that bounty. So open your range a bit in the early going and play a little more aggressively. Similarly, if you find yourself with a smaller stack, don't fret. Tighten up, wait until you get a monster pocket, and shove pre-flop. Someone will call because they want your bounty. If your hand holds up, you've got a double up and are right back in the game. Each week or so, I'll post a new video with some hands from the latest deep run. Don't worry, I'm not making this kind of run in every tournament I play. For each one of these, there are probably 3 or 4 others where I got knocked out early and didn't collect a bounty. So I hope you enjoy these, and maybe I'll see you online. Okay, my first hand, I get pocket 4s in the big blind. Cut off min raises, the button 3 bets, I call. Cut off calls, 3 to the flop, and it comes a 10-6-4 rainbow, so I've got the set. I decide I'm going to check shove. If anybody raises, I get the obligatory raise, and he calls with pocket 8s. So my set is good, and I get my first big pot of the night. That sets me up for my first bounty. So a couple of hands later, same player that I crippled earlier, he's in the small blind. I get jack 10 under the gun +1. I open it up with a min raise. Get a caller, the small stack calls, and the big blind calls. So we go 4 to the flop, 9, king, 3, the small stack shoves. I call with my gut draw, thinking maybe I'll just get lucky. It's not a lot to call. Fluffy Kitties turns over a 2 pair, but I hit runner, flush, and get my first bounty of the tournament. Next hand is the first time this has happened to me. I get a triple bounty. So I've got pocket kings in the big blind, and 3 players in front of me go all in. I am licking my chops to hit the call button. We go to the flop. It's 4-9 versus pocket jacks versus pocket 4s and my pocket kings. I avoid disaster on the run out and scoop 3 bounties and a huge pile of chips for this early in the tournament. So the next hand, I have ace jack suited in the big blind. We get a limper from under the gun. 2-bet, then a 3-bet shove. So I shove, trying to isolate, but instead the 2-better calls. And we've got a bunch of suited aces going up against each other. Suited ace jack, suited ace jack, suited ace king. And the suited ace king hits runner, king. And he gets the bounty. And I lose about a quarter of my stack. So a couple of hands later, trying to build it back up, I get king 6 suited. Early player min raises, I call. And it folds around, so it's just him and I. Flop comes king 2-10. He bets, I raise. He calls. So now I'm a little bit worried. He bets big. I decide, well, I'm going to shove. Maybe he's chasing a flush. And it turns out he's got nothing. I don't know what that was all about. He was determined to give me a bounty, I guess. So I get another bounty and another nice big stack of chips. So this next hand, I miss another bounty. So I've got 400,000 under the gun. Raises, goes all in for 67,000. I call king 7 suited. I figure that's good enough to try for a bounty. And he's got ace queen. I can't get there, and so I end up losing, about 20% of my stack. So that's really not anything to worry about at this stage. Now the next hand, I'm going up against a guy who had been very aggressive all night. So he's under the gun, does a min raise. I'm on the button with queen jack suited. I hate this hand, but I decide to call. And then the big blind calls. So we go 3 ways to the flop. I flop an open ender, 9-10-4. And the aggressive player bets big. I call. Then when he checks the ace on the turn, I decide to shove, hoping that he had just been trying to be aggressive. And he was. He folds, and I get a big stack. Next hand is the big double up that I needed. So my stack had been hovering around 300,000. For quite some time. Again, the aggressive player raises 3x pre-flop. I've got queen jack again. I hate that hand. But the flop comes jack 3-3. When he leads out on the flop, I check raise, check shove, and he calls with ace king, and he doesn't get there. So I get a very nice double up. A couple of hands later, I get bounty number 6. So I get 6-9 suited. I decide to get a little frisky. I do a min raise to open, small stack shoves, and then I can't believe this one got all the way back to me. So it's only 8,000 more to call to try to get a bounty. Of course, you're never folding here. He's got jack 10, flops a jack, turns a 10, but then I hit a 9 on the river to give me 3 of a kind and get bounty number 6. The next hand is bounty number 7. Again, pocket king's been betty good to me. Min raise, so I just decided to flat, try to get a little sneaky here with my big stack, see if I can induce a shove from the big blind. He doesn't do it, but the flop comes king jack 10, so when it checks to me, I shove, and the big blind calls, and he flips over king jack, so he's pretty much drawing dead. I end up getting a full house, get another bounty, and a nice addition to the stack. So now I've got over 800,000 chips, and I've got pocket 10s. It folds to me, so I just limp in, or actually it was a min raise because there's no small blind on this hand. So flop comes 4, 5, 9 hearts. I've got the 10 of hearts. First player bets out. I call. The next card is the 7 of diamonds. He bets again. I decide to shove, trying to think maybe I can get this bounty. Maybe he's got ace 9, king 9, something like that. No, he's got pocket 7s and got there on the turn. So that was less than a quarter of my stack, so again, not a big deal in a bounty tournament. So the next hand, I get another bounty. I've got 6, 7 in the big blind. Player min raises, so I decide to call. Let's see what happens. Flop comes jack 6, 7. I check, he bets, I shove, he calls. I'm thinking he's got king jack, ace jack, something like that. No, he's got 8, 7. Thank goodness he didn't have king jack, because I would have gotten sucked out on. So I get a nice big bump up to my stack and another bounty. Now this next hand is interesting. I get both a bounty and a bad beat in the same hand. So I get pocket aces, 2 players in front of me, min raise and call. I do a 3-bet, folds it back to the min raiser and the caller, and they both call. So I decide I'm shoving the flop almost regardless. But the first player beats me to it. He shoves. So I call, the next guy goes, we're all in. I've got pocket aces against ace jack, against open-ended straight draw, and the stupid jack gets there. So he ends up taking the huge pot, but I got the bounty because the other player in the hand had a little bit more than the guy who won the main pot. So the next hand this is an example of when you start losing chips. Pocket 5s and under the gun probably shouldn't be calling this hand here. When it checks to me after a kind of an innocuous flop, I put out another bet, see if I can get everybody to fold. When that doesn't happen, the jack comes on the turn, and I check. And then he goes all in, and I've just wasted about 100,000. So that ended up being a fun run. I wound up 33rd out of 315 entries. I got 9 bounties for $19, so 8 $2 bounties and 1 $3 bounty. And I wound up with $7.72 in winnings for a total profit on the night of $17.92. So, a lot of fun. Can't wait to get back out there. Hope to see you soon.